Hello and welcome back to another FPL transfer tips video. This week we're looking ahead to game week 13, and remember, if you haven't already or if you haven't checked already, the deadline this week is on Friday at 6:30, so we do have a Friday night game, which means if you're making any transfers, make sure you don't forget about it, and plan to do them on Saturday morning. So a Friday night deadline for anyone who hasn't also seen. Before we jump into it, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe as well if you are new, because we do this every single week, and of course we do lots of other FPL stuff and UCL fantasy stuff as well. We have recently just hit 3,000 subscribers, so thank you all so much. On to 5,000 hopefully by the end of next year as the next goal, but 3,000 in a year, I'm more than well chuffed, so thank you very much. Again, jumping straight into things, we had a little bit of a mixed bag week last week, with a slight drop on the instant seasonal success. Obviously the instant seasonal success for our transfer tips comes in the immediate game week, so we do have these transfer tips with plans for the transfers to obviously go a couple of weeks in advance, but in terms of just measuring a success rate, we just do that week upcoming from when the transfer tips were. So still, looking at the buys, the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Isak, still nice options for this week in general. Bruno has Everton, Newcastle in general have a nice run of fixtures, so still think they could do well. Just unfortunate that they both blanked this week. Salah, on the other hand, the total opposite with another 13-pointer, which was brilliant. Haaland, we did say to sell him against Spurs. Obviously, Man City got pummeled off of Spurs 4-0, and Haaland only got a 2-pointer. So for 15 million, again, as we've mentioned it many a time, not a good captaincy option for the next few weeks, and you probably don't want to be having a 15 mil striker, and that's totally, moving on from the fact that he's not even in any decent form. McNeil, we did say, is a keep after coming back from a slight injury after the international break. He unfortunately only got a 3-pointer. Again, Everton's fixtures are still okay for the next few, so he can still do something, hopefully in the long term. Spoke about avoiding Cunha. That was, a bit of an L. 16 points he ended up getting. I think it was 2 goals and potentially an assist in there as well. He'd done really nicely. His underlying stats just, weren't really favouring him. And if you did want a Wolves striker, Strand Larsen was the one that the stats do prefer. Strand Larsen ended up picking up assists, so I think you get like a 5-pointer if you went for him instead. But yeah, obviously in terms of the immediate game week, Cunha was a bit of a failure. Then for Aina, that was a pretty straightforward one as well. He was being transferred down quite a bit, ended up with a 0-pointer after saying to avoid him, which was quite nice. So we've dropped from 67 down to 64. We are still trying to jump back up above that 70% mark, so we've got 6 more picks for this week, and let's jump straight into it. So we're starting things off this week with Bukayo Saka, another nice return from him over the weekend, and for me I think he's definitely a buy. I think he is the most transferred player in for this week at 327,000 so far at a price of 10.2 million. He has recently risen in price. He is due to rise in price again at some point over the next few days. Really nice fixtures, West Ham away, Man United at home. According to Fantasy Football Hub's expected points, is a better fixture for him to get more points than the West Ham game is next. So the next two, really nice for him to do well. Fulham away is still an okay fixture. Fulham are a pretty solid defence though. But yeah, a really nice pick for me. I don't really think we need to dive too much into the stats. A lot of these transfers this week are pretty straightforward, so there's not too much stats going to be flying about, but Saka is obviously one of the top for the majority of things. Expected assists, he's up there for expected goal involvement and stuff like that. Everyone knows how good he can be, and obviously if you have been following the transfer tips, if you've sold Haaland, you should have enough budget to get him in. So for me, 100% would be trying to get Saka in this week. Next up, we're jumping over to the sells section, and we have Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, he is, as far as I know, should be on the bench for Liverpool in tonight's UCL game, and yeah, I think he does look as though he is going to be fit. Whether he starts, at the weekend or not. We will see. We'll see what kind of minutes he gets against Real Madrid. But for me, I think he's still a sell. He's 7 million. He's not really been getting too many attacking returns. Obviously, in terms of defensive stats, he is still right up there for, I think he's like miles clear at the top for expected goal involvement, but he's not really getting it. And I think with, like Liverpool have been keeping a lot of clean sheets recently, but with City, City haven't been in the best of form, but they are still scoring goals. Newcastle away from home, Newcastle are more than capable of getting a goal. So for me, I think Trent would be a sell for the next few weeks. He has dropped in price already to 6.9 million, not due to drop again in the near future. So I think he's probably another buy in a few weeks' time. I think for now I would sell him, can spread the budget a little bit elsewhere. And, there's the likes of Gabriel for 6 million at $1 million cheaper, who just has nicer fixtures and more likely to do well over the next few games. So for me, I would be selling Trent, potentially looking to buy him back in a couple of weeks' time when Liverpool's fixtures get a bit better and they're more likely to keep some clean sheets. Next up, we have our only keep of the video, and it's Danny Welbeck, and I'm very surprised to see him in here this week. He's been transferred out over 100,000 times. Now, I want to say it is for JOAO Pedro, who will be also in this video, but I'm very surprised to see Welbeck up towards the top of the transferred out list, because he's definitely one of the best strikers you could have picked on a wild card in game week 12, and the fact that we've just went past game week 12 and everyone's starting to take him out is a little bit surprising. He's not due to drop in price. He is being saved by the transfers in, which is probably your sane people who are still bringing Danny Welbeck in for 45,000 of them, but selling Danny Welbeck ahead of the Southampton at home fixture to me seems a little bit mad, because there's no way that he's just instantly going to drop off in form because João Pedro's back. João Pedro obviously does take the penalties and is a very nice option, but I definitely wouldn't be selling Danny Welbeck to get him in. Welbeck has performed while Pedro has been in the team earlier on in the season, so there's no reason why that's not going to happen again. So yeah, for me it's definitely a little bit silly. Southampton and Leicester in the next 3 matches, he's more than capable of doing really well in those. Yes, João Pedro is definitely a good option and is cheaper, but like I said, I wouldn't be selling Danny Welbeck to go anywhere near him. Now, one player that I would sell is going to be Emil Smith-Rowe. Now, he has been a little bit disappointing over the last few weeks, and I'll take a look at his stats in a little minute, but he's up to 5.8 million from 5.5 at the start of the season, so he's one of those more, getting to the mid-priced kind of midfielders. Originally, it was a really nice cheap option at the start of the season, but with the amount of cheap midfielders that have emerged and the fact that people are starting to bring in Salah, Palmer and Saka, Smith-Rowe is definitely not someone you want to be occupying one of your 5 midfield spots. You can see the fixtures as well in the next few. Spurs away, Brighton at home is a difficult fixture even though it's labelled in green, Arsenal at home as well, not really expecting too much from him. You can see with the stats on screen as well, in terms of underlying stats for midfielders alone, he's really not up there for really anything. For XG, he's sitting in 28th, which is below the likes of Lucas Paqueta, who's not being considered by anyone this season. Expected assists, he's 54th, behind the likes of level with the likes of Guimarães. Amad Diallo, Downs from West Ham, they're the kind of players he's in with for expected assists. And then he's only created 1 big chance as well so far this season, which puts him right down the bottom of the list, at 99th on Fantasy Football Hub for that. So his underlying stats really aren't looking too good. He's still owned by 27% of the game as well, and again, as I mentioned, the fixtures aren't great. There's a lot of good midfielders at the moment. Even for the same price, you've got Semenyo, who is suspended for this week, but still a really good pick. After that, McNeil's at that price. You've got Rodgers for a lot cheaper as well, and of course, a little bit further on from those immediate 3 fixtures, they've got Liverpool at home as well, before they reach Southampton. So for me, definitely a sell. I'd be looking to get in one of your better midfielders, because there is so many good options at the moment, and for me, Smith-Rowe definitely wouldn't be one of them. And our final sell of the video is going to be Luis Diaz. Now, I'll be very surprised if you do still own him, but he just isn't a good pick at the moment. He is just very rotation prone, he is a minute's risk. You don't know if he's going to start because, you know, Gakpo seems to be favoured, and we've seen a lot of front threes of Salah, Nunez and Gakpo with Diaz on the bench. So again, similar to what I said about Smith Rowe, there's so many good midfielder picks at the moment, and definitely wouldn't want to have Luis Diaz taking one of those up. If you can afford, or if you've recently took out Haaland and you've got money in the bank, definitely would be looking to upgrade Diaz to Mohamed Salah. But yeah, like I mentioned, you know, not great fixtures for Liverpool over the next two, and for someone who probably isn't going to be getting 90 minutes or even 45 minutes, he's definitely looking like a sell. Already sold by 160,000, and he looks due to drop in the next week or so. So potentially would keep his price at 7.6 million before the deadline, but he's going to definitely drop at some point over the next week. And our final pick of the video, as we mentioned before, is going to be JOAO Pedro. He is only 5.6 million, so he is your cheaper alternative to a Danny Welbeck, and he is, of course, on penalties too. So a really, really good pick. 348,000 transfers in for him as well, due to rise in price, I believe either tonight or in the next 2 days. So if you're watching this, would definitely be looking to get him in ASAP if you are planning on getting him in before the deadline. As I mentioned with Welbeck, Southampton at home, Fulham away, Leicester away, great fixtures for him. Obviously he has been out injured for the last couple, so in terms of underlying stats we can't really take into consideration much, apart from the last 2 games of which he has played in. And in terms of those last 2 game weeks since his return from injury, he's currently sitting in 5th for expected goal involvements. Now for me, I think Pedro is genuinely just ticking all of the boxes. You know, he's high on the underlying stats since he's came back from injury. He's on penalties, he's got great fixtures over the next few, and he is cheap as hell at 5.6 million for a striker. So for me, definitely a buy, a really good, you know, cheap option to help you again get those premium midfielders, potentially lets you get the likes of Gabriel and maybe even a Van Dijk or something in defence, and a really good pick. You know, you can then pick 2 premium strikers beside him as well with his price. Now he is just playing better than a lot of your more expensive strikers as well. You know, the likes of Haaland hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, Isak just recently blanked, Watkins hasn't been brilliant, and I believe that's Pedro with 2 double-digit hauls in the last 2 games that he's played as well. So a really good pick, really good budget forward. Definitely would be looking to get him in this week. And that is it for this week's transfer tips. No avoids this week. I think with the transfers in list, there wasn't really too many people that stood out to me as a poor buy. So we've got 3 sells, we've got 2 buys, and we've got 1 keep. So hopefully, again, we can get 6 out of 6 this week and potentially push us up back towards that 70%. Let me know in the comments if there's anyone that you want to know if I should buy, sell, keep, or avoid them, and I'll make sure to reply to that. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more FPL stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.